Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
And I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
and welcome to the No Way to Hollywood podcast.
Yeah, it's great that you're here, I hope.
Indeed.
Tonight, we are doing something a little bit different. We are actually going to do a case study on a movie. Before I let you know what that is, we do have to give you a little bit of background. I am not a superhero movie fan in general. And I have very little background with Batman apart from the cartoon that I probably saw a handful of times when I was growing up. So, in general, if I'm going to talk about a movie regarding, superheroes or Batman, I'm probably not all that interested.
Okay. Well, and for me, I grew up later in life watching movies at all. And so I did not grow up with superheroes. And the earliest Batmans that I watched, I actually think that I saw the one with Penguin. And what I remember was like, how much do you weigh? And she's like, oh, this much. And he shoots his little thing up and then they like don't go anywhere. And he's like, oh, you don't weigh that much, And so there's that. And then it was, chill and cool party and all that. So that's my Batman growing up kind of thing until we got to Nolan.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have been a superhero fan for a while. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not like a comic book guy. Was never really into that or anything like that. When I was a kid, I grew up with two superheroes. There were only two really in my head, and that was Superman and Batman. And that was because there was the old Richard Donner Superman movies that I loved. And then there were, I did not watch the Tim Burton Batman movies. I was not allowed because I was too young to watch Penguin bite people's noses off and stuff, which, thank you, parents, because that was some awful stuff. But I grew up with Batman Forever, which is awful in a wholly different way than people getting their nose bit off. Anyway, I've been a Batman fan, a Superman fan since I was a kid. I even dressed up as Batman once and went out on the town, man. So I've been a fan of these characters for quite some time.
Wonderful. And that brings us to our case study, which is going to be Dark Knight. This is not a movie that I have seen at all, and I had very little interest in ever seeing it to begin with. But because that is what we are going to talk about tonight, I will, at least halfway through this episode, duck out to go watch the movie.
Get ready for a 3-hour podcast because he has to go watch this.
Now, Luke, I hear you have a bit of a minority opinion on this movie. Would you care to share?
Sure. So apparently on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie, this is Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah, it has a 94?
94. Yeah.
On Rotten Tomatoes with both audience and critics. And I'm in the 6% because I really don't enjoy the film. And why? Okay, so first I'll start out by saying Heath Ledger, Joker, great. I have no problems with that. That is wonderful. And that's the thing that everybody quotes and mentions from the film. But the rest of the movie, I mean, for me, this was the original Joker movie, and we shouldn't have had Batman in the film because he does nothing, and it's boring and pointless, and it undermines its own thesis at one point, and the characters just do stuff, and I don't care at all. So I'm not having any fun outside of the Joker moments, and the movie doesn't make sense. And it ultimately contradicts itself and has a terrible ending. So that's why I don't like it. I'm in the 6%. But again, Heath Ledger, great.
And Jonathan?
Well, that's wrong. And the reason that's wrong is because this movie is pretty great. And, I jest. Luke is, of course, entitled to his opinion. And it'll be very interesting to listen to how he thinks about that. But my experience is very different. My experience of that movie is, I think that the Batman stuff is actually pretty great. I think there's a pretty interesting arc that he's going through there. in a surprising way. There's a character, there's a thing that goes down in the movie that we'll talk about later that made me like, I was ready to go up and cheer. It had nothing. Well, of course, it had something to do with the Joker, but it wasn't the Joker. It was something else. I think that this movie is very well crafted. Now, I will fully admit there are a couple things, especially there's a monologue, sort of a narrated monologue at the end of the movie that to this day I still get confused about. I'm like, so he does this, but does that mean? But then it's the one we needed, but it's not the person we want. Like, I can't keep up with all of that very well, but I think I still get the gist of the theme of the movie. And while there's a little bit that goes on after that movie and the next movie that I have problems with, the movie itself, The Dark Knight, the set pieces, the structure, the character arcs, and you're forgetting about Harvey Dent, who I think is one of the more interesting characters in that movie too. There's a lot of really great stuff going on. So I'm generally speaking in the majority opinion. Now, I'm not sure I'm nearly as hyped as a lot of people are. A lot of people say it's one of the best movies of like it surpasses superhero movies and becomes a fantastic movie in its own right that stands toe-to-toe with many other movies. I think it's great. I'm not sure I'm ready to worship it or anything, but it's a good movie. I think it's really well done. I'm happy to.
Don't worry, because I didn't forget about Harvey Dent. I don't like him at all. Or
whatever. He's awesome.
Well, on that note, guys, it is time for us to go watch The Dark Knight.
And you should go watch it too.
What? It's on Netflix. Go now.
Woohoo! And I'm back.
And I'm back.
Me too.
Well, we have all just gotten back from watching The Dark Knight, and in my case, I got to watch Batman Begins as well.
Good for you.
I'm not so sure about that, but okay.
Oh, my. You needed the context, man.
I appreciated the context. Yeah. Well, we definitely have our opinions on what's going on with the Batman movies, and especially Dark Knight, which is our case study. And Luke, did anything change for you?
Oh, that's a good question. And I was going into it like, okay, we're going to have to talk about this. So I was watching it not as an audience member like I normally do. Like, hey, I'm just trying to enjoy this movie. And now it was like, do my ideas actually hold up to what's going on? And so as I watched it this time, a couple things changed. Batman's motivation does technically sort of make sense a little bit more than it did. But I will say Joker is still great. Mm-hmm. Batman is still dumb. I really dislike the rest of everything else that happens in the film. And it does completely nullify its own thesis. So all of that is still true. But things make a little bit more sense if you really think about it instead of just to try and enjoy the film. And I will say it still is a movie that just overall isn't that enjoyable when Joker is not on screen.
Fair enough. Jonathan, how about you? Anything changed for you?
Well, I have to admit that I went through a similar experience in the sense of I found myself thinking about this case study we were doing a bit more and the ideas a bit more than I was thinking about being an audience member in the seat. But, I've had that opportunity. I've already done that. So, I remember what that experience was like. But yes, I believe there are a couple things that changed. There's some things that were reinforced heavily for me that I forgot all about, where I'm like, oh, this character makes this decision. Truly don't get why we did that. Don't have any idea why that character made that decision. Don't get it.
So, what's an example of that?
Specifically, I'm thinking of Alfred with the letter from Rachel to Batman about, hey, I don't love you. Or should I say, I love Harvey. I'm going to marry him. Sorry. Get over it, dude. And right, she's dead. And by the way, spoilers, but she's dead. And and it's the scene where like the whole way they play it is like Alfred's like Batman's like, oh, she was gonna wait for me, Alfred. She can, Harvey can never know the truth that she was gonna wait for me. And Alfred's like, right, I'm just gonna make sure you don't know the truth that she was totally gonna marry Harvey. And that one decision, I know they're trying to play it off as Alfred caring about him, but I took that as not caring about him. I took that as a really stupid soap opera writing decision. Like, it was forced conflict to me. It was not understandable. It was not justified. But that's one of the, well, I mean, there's other issues with the movie's not flawless. Like, that's the one thing I'll definitely say is having watched it again. And I didn't think this in the first place, but having watched it again with a more critical eye, I do not think the movie is flawless by any means. I don't think everything in it is flawless, whether it's performances or decisions or specifically writing and storytelling. But I'm trying to think about what else specifically changed for me. I think I have a bit of a, I think I know where Luke's going to go with the whole thesis, and it doesn't complete its thesis. And I think I have a stronger understanding of what maybe the movie was trying to do with that. And I think there's a couple things they could have done better. Like, I've got some almost rewrites in my head already about some things. I'm like, if you'd done this, it might have been a little bit stronger to help with that. But so there's a few things in there that were coming to mind. But as far as straight up changing my mind, is the Joker still awesome? As far as a performance and a well done version of that character, absolutely.
Yes, he is.
Absolutely. Is the Batman dumb? No. He's not dumb. I don't think he's a dumb character. And is Harvey dumb? No, I don't think he's a dumb character. I think they're all very interesting. I think I like what all of them are doing in this story. Is Alfred a little dumb at one point? For shizzle. Like, straight up, he is. Is Gordon a little less honorable or admirable in my eyes this viewing? Yeah, he got a little less, like, I mean, he's getting screwed over, but I started to realize, it's like, I like Gordon, but I'm also kind of like, Gordon, he's sort of sidelined in this movie. Like, he's totally in everything. Yeah. And he does some cool stuff, but he's kind of sidelined in a big way in this story. And they also put him in a situation where, like, he almost has favorites with his family and stuff. And it's sort of like, I don't know why Gordon would exactly do all this. So there's some things there. How about you, Scott?
Well, I think this movie fell victim to one of the classic reasons why I, don't necessarily enjoy superhero movies. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, because I had watched Batman Begins right before, I felt like I was already trying to be connected to this character. And for most of the movie with Batman, I was kind of like, meh, okay. Don't understand why you're doing that. Don't understand why you're doing this. And so it just kind of became one of these, like,
what would be an example?
Movies. I think the storyline itself lent itself better to more of like a serial, like, short version, because there were so many loops within the story, so many cliffhangers that just, like, immediately got solved. And it was kind of sad, because it was like, well, hey, that would have been great as a TV series more so than a movie. And so in terms of the story, I kind of felt a little lost. I mean, there were so many little loops and so many, ultimately, like, Two-Face, Harvey is Two-Face. Like, I want to see more of that character. And, for 2/3 of the movie, I don't have that character. And then the battle for that character, him as a bad guy, is just done. I know it's a superhero movie and he's going to come back to life and do all these other things and whatnot later on, because that's what superhero movies do. Unless I just hate that character and want to keep him dead. But, it's like, I don't have as much emotional connection because of the fact that it is a superhero movie, and I just kind of come to expect those things now.
Okay, well, and I will say, this is Christopher Nolan's trilogy. It's not Marvel or Game of Thrones. So, yeah, I will say, I'll agree that, like, character loops kind of close a little bit too fast or whatever, especially for Harvey, because he's just kind of like, why are you in this movie, right? But Okay, so let me just run through kind of my thesis, and then Jonathan, you can reply, and you Scott, you can do whatever, right? Okay, so
Thanks for liking me, Luke.
yeah, man. So my thesis is at the very beginning, people are rising up because they are inspired by Batman. And so then in my first viewings of this movie, I was always like, so what's Batman's problem? He's inspiring people to fight crime. And this time I realized, oh, they're using guns and Batman don't use no guns. So that's why he's mad about it. Okay. Except that he's like, I don't kill people. Except that like when I punch them really hard and they just happen to not die. And so it's like, this is kind of stupid. Like, I totally understand that like there's a Batman like ethos of like, I don't kill people. But like, it totally doesn't fit with like, but cops can shoot. So like it doesn't connect in this world. Okay, so that's number one. I love Joker and he is great and he does all of his stuff. Okay, that's wonderful. Then we go and we get the guy from the other country, and I don't care. It made a little more sense this time, but I don't care still. And then ultimately, this whole thing keeps ratcheting up to get to a point where Joker is like, we're going to put people on boats. And then we're going to do that classic, like, if you don't kill one or the other, then I'm killing you both thing. And what's awesome is everybody, the criminals and the normal people, choose not to act. And they don't play into the fear game. And they don't do it. And so that is the movie saying, again, people are inspired and are willing to step up. And then the end of the movie happens, and we're given dialogue that says, oh no, people can't handle things. And I'm like, your movie just showed that they can in the face of Joker. Like, what's wrong with you? So the movie literally does not make sense at the end. That's my experience. It doesn't make sense. And yeah, I just don't care about the other characters. But again, Joker is awesome. And watching this again, like the scenes where he's like, want to know how I got these scars? Like, oh my goodness, it's great. It's great. Okay, so that's kind of my take.
I mean, I'll give you this, Luke. I'm not sure I actually enjoyed any part of the movie until we got to the boats to begin with.
Wait, you didn't even like Joker at the beginning when he's just like killing everybody and like blowing up stuff? And
no. By the time Joker finally became interesting to me.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
You're a philosophy major. And so until it got to the philosophy question at the very end of the movie,
yes.
You didn't care at all.
So true, and you're so right.
Punk.
But that is the only reason that movie has redeeming value for me.
Oh my gosh. So, all right. Everything you do and like about any movie going forward is a little suspect for me now. Everything is going to have to go through. He's a philosophy major. And did it have a philosophy major bent in it? Oh, my goodness.
At least you understand who I am at this point. Let's be
honest. I mean, I thought I already did, but I didn't realize how deep it went. I didn't know how deep it went.
Wait, okay. And like, Joker is actually like a philosophical thing, right? Because it's all about like chaos and like, how do people handle things and what is reality? Like, you didn't like any of that?
Not entirely, no. I think if I went back and watched it again, having enjoyed the ending part so much, I might think a little bit differently about it. But from a first view, I was kind of like, you keep telling me this performance is so great, and I just want it to be so great, and it's
so
good.
Great.
I mean,
it's so great.
Sorry, Scott. Go ahead. It's what?
It's good. It only gets great for me at the very end, and I'm sure if I went back and watched it again, I would change my mind. I mean, I did enjoy the scene that you just referenced, Luke, about his scars and whatnot, but on the whole, I was hoping that I would either hate him more or love him more, and that just didn't happen.
You were just ambivalent.
Yeah.
Even when he did a magic trick and made a pencil disappear.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, even I'm not that disconnected.
Well, this is a fascinating set of people with fascinatingly different viewpoints on this movie and
Agreed.
So Jonathan,
performances.
tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm not. Well, I mean, okay, all right, fine.
See, it's okay. You're entitled to your own incorrect opinion, Scott. I just
Or my correct opinion.
or there's actually a different audience for different films.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be all right. Here's the thing, guys. The boat thing has always stood out to me personally in this film from beginning first viewing till now. It has always been one of the weaker parts of the film for me. Period. I have always found the whole set piece, the whole action scene before it, the whole setup. The setup itself is a semi-interesting philosophical question. It's semi-interesting to me, but ultimately, I don't buy into the movie's argument of that scene and how that plays out at all. I don't buy it. And I realize it's because, I mean, granted, I have my own personal views on humanity, certainly in humanity in the movie that I just watched 2 hours of, where basically people consistently do awful things to each other all the time. That's the movie world that we are in. And that's the world that Batman's been trying to go against. And I understand that, yes, the whole thing is like Batman's inspiring people. But that's the thing is he's not inspiring the way he wants to, right? Like the whole thing is now he's got people out there doing what he's doing, and he doesn't even want to be doing what he's doing. He's only doing it because he thought someone had to do it. Someone had to step up and do that to make an opportunity for what he was hoping for, which is the Harvey Dent character and that entire world, that entire idea of like civilized society with laws and not corruption, maybe can handle, can deal with cops and robbers and the whole deal. He wants a normal status quo, and he thought he had to do something extra to deal with the crazy that is Gotham and the corruption that is Gotham, right? So he's inspired people to follow suit in the way he does not want them to follow suit. But he's also inspired others, like Harvey Dent, to do exactly what he wants them to do, and he's trying to give them an opportunity to do that, and he wants out. He wants Batman to stop. Now, there's not a line in the movie of, I want Batman to stop. He never says that. But he absolutely suggests that he wants to get with Rachel and be beyond this, and he thinks it's coming. The whole thing, I think, with the character from Batman Begins and this movie is that he wants to just change things and get out. He believes Batman can be a symbol and can be temporary, can just do something for a time and get out of the whole thing and be done with the corruption and all that, and we can have a stable, normal city, normal law sort of world. I think that's how he's thinking. The character is thinking. I think that's how I perceive that. And so I like the whole beginning, even with going off to China, and it's not necessarily the most important action scene. It's got some fun things like the skyhook thing. That's real. That's a real thing that they did, and that's real stuff. Air Force commandos used to do that. All that kind. It's just kind of fun because that's totally real. You can do that. I mean, from a skyscraper as Batman, I don't know, but you can totally do that kind of thing. But set pieces aside, I love this dichotomy of the Joker showing up, and he is anarchy and corruption in a sense, corruptibility, able to corrupt people and turn them on each other through anarchy, personified, right? He is an idea, right? So the first movie is like Batman's an idea, right? Like, I'm going to make this Batman symbol. It's an idea. I'm going to use it to stop crime and fight crime. Well, little does he know, this Joker thing that he keeps ignoring in the beginning of the film is also an idea personified. It's also like corruption almost personified. It is anarchy personified. These things are coming, and he doesn't pay attention to it. He is so focused on his goal of, I just need to stop the corruption of the gang families and solve that. And so he's on this mission where, like, at the beginning of the movie, he is convinced that he is winning. He is convinced that he is putting everything behind bars. He is convinced that Harvey Dent is the next person that's going to make this be legit and no longer a vigilante endeavor, right? Like, for Batman's character, where we start is like the whole first act of the movie is him being like, we are on the verge of winning. We are on the verge of ending this. I'm on the verge of having, like, being able to put the cowl down and all of that. That's where he is. And I love that he's there and has no idea that what he's done is inspired not only vigilantes he didn't want to inspire, but he's created this other entity, basically, another symbol, another idea that's completely antithetical to him. And it's rising up too. And he doesn't start to see it until later.
But he didn't create it. Joker just happens to be there. And so to say he's making it. Now, Does he push and make it so that things happen? Yeah, sure. Does crime do this in response to his action? Yes. But like, it's not that because he's an idea, therefore this other idea has to exist, except for that it does in the comic book world and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the second Lego Batman movie and whatever. But like, the reality is that Joker also lives. And so you can't ever stop fighting evil.
Sure, I think that's another layer of the theme. And yes, Batman didn't like kill Joker's parents and make the Joker or something. That's true. He didn't do it that directly. But even the Joker says that, like, you've changed everything. We can't go back to the way it was, and you complete me, right? Like, granted, the Joker just exists, but he doesn't just exist. Like, the thing is, this movie is on one level, there's the basic plot of like, yeah, we're doing gang stuff, and I'm going to go over here, and we're trying to take the money from the banks and all. It's all that's going on. But fundamentally, what makes this movie more interesting is it isn't just a crime movie. It's actually trying to take characters and make them truly ideas, and it's becoming philosophical in all of its stuff. And so, yes, maybe the Joker just quote unquote exists, but he never existed in that world cinematically until this movie. And he's only showing up after Batman's been around for a while. And I think there's supposed to be a connection between the fact that Batman's got other Batmen showing up and he's inspiring people and what is coming out of the wake of what Batman has done. This is a movie about the consequences of his actions. And there's the consequences he wants, which are Harvey Dent and all the things that are possible with that. And there's the consequences he doesn't want, which are the Joker and everything that's going on with that. And it's all the wake of him existing and doing anything. Now, granted, you can take a step back and say, well, you know, the Joker would have showed up anyway. Well, maybe, but I don't think that's how this movie is suggesting it or writing it. I don't think this is how it's implying its world to exist. And it doesn't do it implicitly, but I don't, you know.
And I'm okay, and I think there's videos in the description, you know, down below, but like, I'm okay with characters acting as, you know, foils to each other ideas and all that stuff. Like, I'm great with that. Mm-hmm. But I am not okay with saying this person exists in the world purely to show that there is a symbol for evil too. Like, no.
You know, I think that's actually writing, man. Like, you totally do that as a writer. You make villains and superheroes, right? Like, why do people come up with villains in the first place? Do they just like why would you even have a villain? What's even the point? Why would you even write any anti-hero? Like, why do this? Is it because it already exists in the world in your head? Or is it because you, as a comic book writer, are like, what's Batman going to go against now? I need something else that's going to have to exist. And you create this villain that you think is the best foil for the character, right? So you do that. And it also represents ideology. In this film, I think they took it as, we know what this character is from comic books, but we're going to use him in this symbolic world that we've already set up. And so if Batman can do this, we're going to do this.
Yeah, and I'm totally cool with Joker.
Right. I think he is a representative of this other side of things. And I love the beginning of the movie because I see it as this other thing you didn't expect to happen that you've essentially created opportunity for. At the very least, you've created opportunity for, right? And so the whole point is connection between Batman's actions and what he's doing for good and all the things he doesn't want to have happen in his wake are coming up to meet him, and he's not paying attention. That's the first act for him.
Sure. Okay.
And I think that's actually, I enjoy that. I enjoy that rising storm with him thinking he's going to win. And what it really also does is supposed to show off how awesome Harvey Dent is, which I know that, Luke, you think Harvey Dent is lame. I think Harvey Dent is awesome. I also think that he's deeply flawed. And there's an issue in this movie, I think, with some development of what Harvey Dent's supposed to do. And specifically, I think there's an issue with the writing of showing that Harvey Dent is the symbol that inspires the normal people. I think that one piece is lacking in being fleshed out in the film. Specifically, if I had to keep the boats at the end and do that all again, I would make it that the people on the civilian boat, at least, do not do anything because of inspiration by Harvey Dent, belief in Harvey Dent, something of that nature. I would try to tie it very specifically.
Okay, and then that would tie into the posters and the bumper stickers for the movie. I believe in Harvey Dent. And I never, ever understood why anybody believed in Harvey Dent. Like, there was nothing about him that was like, that's a guy I want to follow.
Well, I got to the point there at the end of the movie where I was going, oh, I was supposed to believe in Harvey Dent, like, and I feel like that's part of the reason why the writing could have been, or the story itself could have been a lot better as a, mini series on TV with hour-long episodes, because you give yourself that little bit more time to explore that character, to develop that character, to understand that character, to know why when he starts going out trying to kill people at the flip of a coin, that how significant that is. And to me, it was kind of just like, okay, here's this guy that, yeah, he was looked at by Batman as the guy that was gonna save the city as the DA, and then now he's out there killing people. But
Well, okay, and if you don't mind, Jonathan, I'm going to take a sidestep for Harvey with this. I create my own luck. He's never leaving anything to chance. He never does, because he either uses a coin that he has waited for whatever, or he keeps flipping until he gets what he wants.
And I think that's beautiful, because what I think is going on with Harvey Dent, as far as they wrote him in this story, is number one, I'll just say for me personally, in the first act in particular, and through the second act a lot of the way, I like him. I like him a lot. I think he is the kind of guy you want to see, because he's got enough gumption to basically have courage against corruption. And that's the thing that you've not seen in Gotham. And so since you see it, like with the gun being pulled on him in the courtroom, and he still shows up, and the whole thing is he still keeps on showing up even though his life is in danger. Like,
But,
it's
okay, yeah, yes, and that is a great scene. But there's also people dressed up in their sweatpants combating evil, and they're normal people.
I am more on the same line as Batman, where I think it's like, you guys, it's not what he wants. I know that much. I know Batman doesn't want that. And it's not just because you're not as cool as me. It's because I don't want anybody to be doing what I'm doing. This shouldn't have to happen. You're going to get yourself hurt. What I want to have happen is for authorities to have authority. And I understand Batman has like undermined the whole system, right? Like, that's the whole thing. He became a vigilante, undermined the whole system, and he inspired everyone else to do that. But his whole point, and this is naivety on his point, right? And that's part of what happens by the end, is that he believes that if he can just do this for a little bit, he can get out. That's my read on it. Back to Harvey Dent. He is this guy who is still in the system and seems to be having courage where no one else for years has done anything, right? And so I begin to like him for those reasons, because he's still in the system. He's still legal. He's the white knight, right? He's doing things by the rules, except that, of course, he is doing things. He is working with Batman. Sure. I understand that. But again, if you buy into Batman, which is sort of this temporary justification to stop evil because it's so corrupt, then you start to buy into Harvey Dent's actions as well. To the coin, I've heard people say, for instance, that they find Harvey Dent's change, if he's really that idealistic, if he's really that awesome, then when Rachel dies, why is he suddenly able to go anarchistic and be evil and do that whole thing? I've heard that argument before, for instance. And I think the coin's actually a really excellent example of what the character really is. Harvey Dent looks like a white knight, and he is courageous, and you do like him. At least I did. I liked him. But the thing you don't realize, and you start to get little glimpses of little by little, especially with the interrogation scene, is, yeah, it's weighted, but he believes fundamentally in his own ability to control everything. That's why that coin is the same side. He never tells anybody about it. He always flips it. He is playing games. He is trying to manipulate the whole world to do what he thinks he needs to do. Now, granted, you may like what he's trying to do, and he's similar to Batman in that he's trying to push something forward, but he has this nature of he has to control everything, or he thinks he can control everything. And so when the Joker, who literally says in this movie that what he does is turns everyone who thinks they can control things and turns it on his head, does that to Harvey, right? And literally the coin is a symbol, right, of your control is now broken. He then breaks completely and says, you know what? Like an angry child, right? Like, he just has a temper tantrum. And that's the thing. He wanted control. He no longer has control. He has personal consequences for it. And he's not really an idealist. He's really a guy who had control issues. And now he doesn't have control. He says, fine, if I can't have control, the coin has control. It's 50-50 chance until even then, he still tries to manipulate it. He still tries to get control, right? I can't kill you, but I'll kill your driver.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So he still uses it to get control. And so I think, Scott, you're making an interesting point where I never see anything that says Harvey Dent is someone I should believe in. Because Gordon, who I actually have seen do stuff, he actually is in the system and doing it. And he's been doing it for more than, 6 scenes.
I agree that the Harvey Dent connection to inspiring the people and that sort of that push, I think that could be a lot stronger. And if that was made stronger, the end won't feel as random as it does, or as sort of out of nowhere to some extent as it does, because they want you to be there, but I don't think they've earned you being there.
Okay.
But
and
I think that's a flaw. I think that's a deep flaw in the movie. I do this with a lot of stories. I like it enough, or I like enough of what they're doing, that I sort of fill in the gaps in my head to some extent, or I'm willing to go. And I think that movies actually ask you to do that a lot in a lot of cases. They actually ask you to fill in gaps. And for this movie, I was willing to fill in the gaps of some of that stuff and say, like, I believe that because Gordon likes him, because Batman likes him, right? Because all those other people, Rachel is supposed to be, and I think that's the other thing, is if there's any character in here I actually dislike deeply, it's Rachel Dawes. I do not like her. I do not identify with her. I don't find any appeal to her whatsoever. When the movie came out and she blew the flip up, I about cheered, because I was so sick of that character being in the movie. And I was super excited about what that was going to do to Harvey and what that was going to do to Batman and the whole situation. So dramatically, I liked it, and I hated that character. I know how they longer had to deal with her, right? Well, so that was me.
It's so funny because in Batman Begins, that character was so likable, and I enjoyed her character in Batman Begins, but as soon as and part of me got thrown for a loop because of the change in the actress, and you're kind of watching it and you're just going, all of a sudden I don't care much about you anymore. And I see Batman, and this is still a part of the movie that I'm not entirely certain about. Like, Batman made a choice and told the police, hey, I'm going to go get Rachel, but ends up getting Harvey. And
it's the old Joker switcheroo.
Yeah, it's Joker.
Okay. So that's a common thing for Joker. And I was guessing that was probably the case. But it was interesting to see the responses of those two characters based on that, because Harvey is like screaming and yelling, you went for the wrong person, and then he has to hear the love of his life die. And it was kind of like he never gets back to a point of actually understanding what happened.
Well, and that's a fair point too, although as an audience member, since I understood, I guess, again, whether it's filling in the gaps or not giving a flip, I just kind of went with it, because again, I think the bigger thing with him is, regardless of whether or not he knows how exactly that went down, I still think that the character's actions and his change to me are still believable, because I still believe that ultimately the whole thing with Harvey Dent, and I will grant you, I don't necessarily think it's written to the best of its ability. Again, it's written well enough that I was willing to fill in the gaps for it. But I think what they were trying to do with Harvey Dent is essentially say, this is a guy you're supposed to think is an idealist and is like pure and is the white knight and is the good guy, right? And not only did the main characters believe that, the general people believe that. I think they're even trying to take Rachel Dawes as potentially a semi-surrogate for your average person, even though she's not your average person. But I wonder if they were trying to do that too, and like marry, she's ready to marry him. And so everyone likes Harvey Dent. He's an idealist. And you're supposed to slowly but surely, even before things truly go bad for him, you're supposed to slowly but surely realize this guy's got a dark side, and it's partly because he's arrogant enough to think he can just control everything. And then it breaks on him because the Joker does the breaking of control best. And then you're supposed to buy into, well, then he's throwing a temper tantrum because he's not actually an idealist. He's not actually that good of a guy. He's actually a very broken person. And when you push him this way, he's corrupted and changes, which reinforces what Joker believes about everybody. So then you're supposed to get to the end of the movie where you've got the boats, and it's all about like, will they be corrupted? Will they change, or will they not, right? Like, will they do what Joker wants, or will they not? And the movie plays it as people are just innately good or something. And the only thing I like about that scene is I like the criminal guy who looks super hardcore, who gets up and is like, you've never taken a man's life. I'll do what you should have done like 5 minutes ago. And takes it and throws it out the window. Because I'm like, I believe it. I don't know why, but I fundamentally believe that guy has a better understanding about everything that's going on and would have the guts to do that and knows what to do, because no one else can take that back. So there's not going to be a right. Even if there is, they can't do anything about it. There's no longer this issue for them.
And let's be honest, at that moment when the criminal does that, all of a sudden he becomes one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Absolutely.
He's awesome. He's awesome. I mean, like and that's where I talk about filling the gaps too. Like again, with that one thing he does, I suddenly fill in the gap of it. Like, is this guy like learning about change? Is he somehow changing? Like, is the system or just being in prison for this particular individual actually giving him a chance to change and not be a criminal anymore in a sense? Like, is he changing? Like, that's all in my head because of one action he makes. And even if it's not that,
his line of dialogue, which says, "You've never taken a person's life. I know what this is like.
right?
So if you were to do it, it's going to break you. So
Right.
I'm going to save you from doing that."
And that's where that is so strong that when the civilian boat and the little pompous guy is like, "I'll just do it because I'm a pompous," and he goes over and they can't do it. I believe it, but I don't believe it's because, like Rachel says, believe in people. I'm like, it's because that guy's a little punk and he doesn't have the guts to do anything. And so he couldn't do it. He sits down and it's over. And I think that's a social reality or a character reality, but it has nothing to do with him being a good guy at heart. It has to do with him being a little weakling.
Yeah.
That's what I think it has to do with, right? So that's part of what undercuts it for me too. So I don't believe, and granted, maybe the movie is trying to do this, but I don't believe the thesis of the film is like people are innately good or they will be inspired and do good things. I think if they had tied it more to Harvey Dent and they said, for some reason, the I believe in Harvey Dent thing is tied to people not blowing each other up on boats, and that's the thing that stops the Joker, right? Then everything after that follows very, very well in the sense of Joker says, "Oh, they didn't do it now. That's only because you got your little white knight, and I've destroyed him. I've corrupted him. I've showed who he really is."
Sure.
Right? And then you get, I think it's what they should have done and or what they were trying to do. Now, granted, I understand that they didn't write that. They didn't do that. They didn't earn that. And I don't believe in the innately good crap. I don't go there, especially with this movie's portrayal of it. So that's why that boat sequence is the worst thing for me. All of that is the worst thing for me. But I see what they were trying to do, I think. And maybe I'm doing too much of rewriting the movie and liking the movie I rewrote as opposed to the movie I watched. I understand that. Like I get it. I can do that. I can admit to that. But there's something about where they go and the idea that Batman is learning that he's learning through Joker in the situation that he can't stop. He has to be around. He has to keep doing stuff. And this sort of like weird, like Jesus maneuver he pulls where basically it's not fair. It's not right. It's not just. I didn't do these things, but I will take it on so that we have an opportunity for everyone to be redeemed, to have a chance at life. Now, granted, in the next movie, because they're doing this whole, because fundamentally some poor writing, they are getting into the world of like lies and consequences. And so they're making a big lie about Harvey Dent and that's not right. And there's a lie about Alfred does to Bruce and that's not right. Like there's all these lies going down. And like, so the whole basis of the thing is actually lies, not actually grace or mercy or like it's not actually justice. And so it falls apart, but it's the echoing of that kind of thing. So I kind of like that idea. And I don't know, I guess at the end of the day, it was I remember going to the theater and I remember watching that movie and going for a ride and having an intellectual stimulus and thinking to myself and going through all the arcs they wanted me to feel. I felt Harvey Dent being awesome and I felt him falling and that sucking. I felt Batman's pull at wanting to be done and thinking he was almost there and then realizing, oh, well, everything is the worst. Things really suck, and I'm going to have to keep on doing this to the point where I have to take on burdens that I would never, ever want to take on. But I'm going to do it because I think it's the best thing for everybody. And, I liked watching, and of course, Joker's performance was amazing, and everything from bombs blowing up and him not knowing that the remote works and looking around and like, what's going on. Like, there's so many great things from Heath Ledger's performance. No one's even going to, well, except for Scott, no one's going to even begin to talk about how that's not great. And I guess I'm talking a lot, but I guess this viewing, there's been things I've struggled with that movie for a long time. And some things like the boat sequence and stuff like you said, Luke, about the thesis not being proved. And like I've thought about those things. And like Harvey Dent, that change is so sudden, it doesn't make any sense. And I think that for whatever set of reasons, the way they did write it is close enough that I'm able to fill in the gaps and go with them the whole way. And I was able to do that from day one, even if I didn't quite intellectually get it. I felt it. And now looking at it, I can intellectually or sort of writing wise see like, hey, I really think you should have written this better. You really need to tie these things together more, et cetera, for that really to pull strong. But it still works for me overall. It still does it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay, and I will say this is not a Daenerys problem, right? Like I totally believe Two-Face comes out of this. Like I totally get that, because I don't actually like him as like this shining white knight. In fact, even Batman says, Bruce Wayne says, "I believe in Harvey Dent," and Rachel's like, "No, you don't. Why are you making fun of him?" So I totally get that he made that change, and that is not my problem. It's that I don't believe that he's great in the beginning, and so none of it works for me. So that's my problem.
I think there's a lot that I did when I was watching this movie that was certainly affected by the fact that superhero movies aren't my favorite thing in the world. And I definitely enjoyed a lot of the philosophical stuff, obviously, because I'm a philosophy major. But there's a lot of this movie that just kind of never really excited me, and I never really bought in. And filling in those gaps, Jonathan, like you're talking about, just didn't happen for me. Probably because of that. That being said, if you are someone who enjoys comic book movies, I mean, you're probably going to enjoy these movies, and that's perfectly okay.
Because the technical stuff is also really good. Like Nolan is good. He's good at this stuff.
Right. Absolutely, Luke. And there's definitely a really solid quality on the technical side for sure. Well, we are drawing close to the end of this episode, folks, so we are once again going to give you suggestions of movies to watch while you're quarantined, just like us.
If I could just, before we do that real quick, just ask. So if we can just say this, Luke, it seems to be that the big issue, like the thing between our viewing experiences in a lot of ways, is that essentially you never bought into Harvey Dent. All you ever thought was that he was crap. And because of that, you don't get to go through the emotional journey that they want you to go through, which every other character is like, that's the pivoting character, I think. You're following Batman and all that other stuff. There's other issues, sure. But it would seem to me that what we've talked about is getting to the point where you didn't buy into him as a white knight in the first place. You never did. You never liked that. And so the whole like crux of everything that has to follow doesn't matter because it was never good in the first place. Would that be fair?
I think that's very fair. And it's interesting because as you've explained this evening and kind of talk through your view and your review and rewrite and all that stuff, yeah, it does look like Harvey Dent is kind of the problem in this film. And that's interesting because I really like Joker, and I was always like, why are you shoehorning in this other guy? Why is he in here? So yeah, it could be that had that worked for me, this other stuff would work for me too. But I'll also say I just never understood or believed that the people needed to have someone to believe in, because otherwise it would all just be anarchy. Like I never believed that. I don't believe it about the world. So it just never worked for me as a concept. And maybe had Harvey Dent been more for that, maybe, but no, I just reject the premise of the film.
Okay. And that's sorry, I didn't want to take too long. I just wanted to make sure I knew a bit. Want to make sure very clear where I think the differences are. So thanks.
All right.
And that's good because I think it actually is clearer than it's been before with our conversations.
Sounds good. All right, Jonathan, what movies are you recommending for our viewers?
All right, viewers. So I realize that I keep on bringing up Netflix films, and that maybe some of you don't have Netflix. Maybe some of you have Hulu. Maybe some of you have Amazon Prime. Maybe some of you only have access to Vudu free stuff because it's totally free if you. So I thought I'd give you maybe a movie or two for each service today, and just give you a shot, give you a wide smattering of things. If you've got Hulu, I recommend that you watch potentially Free Solo, which is an excellent documentary about a free solo mountain climber. And you can also find that on Disney Plus, but either one of those places, maybe watch Free Solo. And this one goes out to all the anime folk, where SAO, which stands for Sword Art Online, had a movie called Ordinal Scale, and they've actually got the dub version of that movie on Hulu. So if you've got Hulu and you like anime, maybe check that one out. Going to Amazon. If you've got Amazon Prime, I would like to recommend to you two movies. One is The Cutting Edge. It's a quirky, cheesy, romantic comedy about ice skating. And I think that might be just the ticket that you need right now in the midst of this coronavirus. And if
I
that
actually own that movie, for the record.
And if that's too cheesy for you, then let me take you to Absurdityville and Extremely Cheesyville when I tell you that Amazon Prime also has UHF, the Weird Al Yankovic directed movie. And that movie is absurd and awesome in its comedy. I think it's pretty funny, although you may not like it, and that's okay. So there's a couple from Amazon Prime. For Netflix, one that's going away that is a bit of a deeper cut for many people is Strictly Ballroom. Strictly Ballroom is a Baz Luhrmann film. He's the guy who did Moulin Rouge, Romeo plus Juliet. He did Australia. What's the newest? He did Great Gatsby. That was another one. So if you know any of those movies, you might know his style. Strictly Ballroom is real early stuff. And this is actually one that Luke knows about. And it's one that he pointed me to.
I own it too.
And yeah, Scott happens to also really like that movie. And so, having watched it once, again, it's got some of that oddity stuff from Baz Luhrmann. Like, no doubt, it's odd, it's quirky, but maybe give it a chance. It's kind of fun, and it's going away, I think, in April. So, if you want to, get that going now. The other thing on Netflix is because I love it so much, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you have not seen this film, please, I implore you. Make yourself happy. Watch that film. All right. Last two. I'm sorry. I'm going to go. Disney Plus, Three Musketeers with Charlie Sheen. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous, but watch it. It's awesome. Also, if you want something that's a little bit more like higher tier as far as everyone seems to think it's really great, Roger Rabbit. So if you got Disney Plus, Roger Rabbit or Three Musketeers, go check that out. And Vudu, last thing, these are free movies. They have ads. I understand that, but this is completely free. You can get Vudu free, and you can watch these movies for free. A couple I will give to you are Draft Day with Kevin Costner. Some people find that movie incredibly boring. I think it's actually pretty fascinating, kind of fun. I'm not a huge sports guy by any stretch of the imagination. I still enjoyed it. Give that maybe a watch.
I watch that movie every year before the NFL draft, for the record.
And last one I'll tell you for Vudu is an old school one that my dad showed me back in the day, called Quigley Down Under. It's a Western with Tom Selleck, where he goes to Australia. A Western American cowboy goes to Australia and has to deal with some crap. And, if this is not selling you, then let me give you this. Alan Rickman as a villain. I repeat, Alan Rickman as a villain. There you go. If you don't have something to watch after all of that, I'm sorry. I don't know how.
Okay.
All right, Luke, what do you got for us?
Since we're talking about, or we talked about a character driving the story, and if you don't like them, like I didn't, then it kind of kills things. But in this case, the show still works. So I'm recommending Steins Gate. It's an anime. It's a series. It's a show, but it's self-contained, so it's not like you're gonna have to watch 180 episodes to get somewhere. It goes, and there is some stuff that is awesome, and I love Chuck, and this does the end of Chuck better.
Ooh, that makes me all giddy and crazy inside, Luke.
Okay, but it's not.
I like Chuck. Chuck is awesome.
Chuck is awesome, but the ending of Chuck isn't so much.
Makes me cry.
You mean season 3 when Chuck ended and there was no more seasons after 3? Cool.
I wish.
All right. Well, my movie selection for you all tonight is completely based on the 3 movies that I've probably watched more than any other movies in my life. And these are the 3 movies that at different times in my life I could watch over and over and over again, and they were just fine. So the first one in my youngest year was Mary Poppins, the original one. I don't know why I love the movie so much, but I just remember watching it over and over and over again and just being taken to fun places and enjoying the experience. So Mary Poppins is the first one. As I got a little bit older, the movie that I could watch over and over again became Field of Dreams. And yes, I really just wanted to see that scene where Kevin Costner pretends his finger is a gun and James Earl Jones calls him out on it. That's good stuff. And maybe if I actually build it, they will come, or he will come, or whatever the story is. But yeah, loved that movie. And the one that's been my can watch over and over again movie since college is 10 Things I Hate About You, which is a fun modernization of Taming of the Shrew from Shakespeare. And
Heath Ledger.
you get to see a really good actor in there who played a really cool role that we talked a lot about tonight. So there you go. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you again next time.
Stay healthy.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye-bye.
Bye-bye-bye-bye-bye.
Wow. What? Okay.